Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to inspire and motivate people to never give up on themselves or their dreams. We will chat with highly successful people from all walks of life and discuss what motivates and drives them to successfully attack life head on and never give up. Welcome to episode number 39 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is Always Be Learning. Our quote of the day comes to us from Brian Herbert. The capacity to learn is a gift, the ability to learn is a skill, the willingness to learn is a choice. Today marks day 3 of the 21-day No Quit Living challenge. We welcome you to participate in this challenge where we invite you to think big and identify your one goal that you want to accomplish over these next 21 days. Please head over to our No Quit Living Facebook page for all the details and our daily videos. You can find us at facebook.com/noquitliving. We hope to see you there. I'm excited to bring you today's episode. I challenged our guest to bring it, and I believe he did. His positive approach to life and his passion for what he's doing is addictive. I'm excited to introduce you to Dustin Mathews. Dustin, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
I am super thrilled. I'm pumped and excited to be here.
Awesome. I appreciate it. So the first question we ask our guests is, are you ready to make it happen today?
Of course. I'm ready to bring it.
Awesome. So make sure you do bring it, though.
You're going to hold me? I love it. Let's do it.
One of the things we talk about here is accountability. So I'm definitely holding you accountable to the fact that you're going to bring it.
Done. And then call me out if I don't.
I will do that. So our number one objective is to always motivate and inspire our listeners. And I was curious if you had either a story about perseverance or perhaps a challenging time that tested you, but you kept on going and didn't quit.
Absolutely. I think about kind of what I'm up to in the world right now. So it's a little self-serving to be open and transparent with you, but I think it's good because it's a lesson of, early in life, things knock on your door and give you opportunities. But in this particular case, I wasn't ready to answer. And so I remember being in school and university, and in order to graduate, you had to take public speaking. And of course, I wanted to graduate. One, the parents were breathing down my back. And then also, two, it was my time to go and out into the world. And so I remember signing up for this class, and I walked into the room and there was 300 people there, and I was sweating. And the professor comes out and says, "Listen, you're going to have to do 10 talks." And I'm looking around thinking, wait a minute, is anyone else hearing this? And so in that moment, I bailed. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go find a smaller class. I'm going to go find an online class. That's right when they were becoming popular. I'll do this virtual public speaking thing. And so I sign up again, and it's the same thing. I walk in the same part of campus. It's the same room, and it's the same pitch. I got to do 10 talks. And so I would love to tell you, Chris, that I conquered my fear in that moment, and I persevered. But I bailed again. And so I became so passionate about not taking this class. I think I did more work. And so what happened is I started asking around. I asked teachers. I asked student aides. And I read the student handbook. And no one reads the student handbook when you're at school. And so basically, I found a legal loophole that got me out of having to do this, having to speak in front of others. And I was lucky because in high school, I was chasing a girl. And I took a class that ended up getting me out of having to publicly speak. And so now I run a company that trains people to do so. And I think it's funny because it took a couple more knocks at the door for me to get presented with that opportunity and actually take it. But once I did, my whole life changed. And so that's what I'm really passionate about. And I just want people to look out for that early in life, or even later in life too. It's we have these opportunities and sometimes we don't take them.
Well, that's a lot of creativity on your end, not only the story of getting out of it and with the legal loophole, but also with the high school girls. So I commend you for being very persistent in that regard.
Well, it didn't work out with the girl, but the funny thing is I took that class. It was called Model United Nations, ironically. And yes, I spoke in front of other people representing the United Kingdom on their policy or whatever, something just crazy. And I must have been so blindsided by chasing this girl that I didn't realize that I was publicly speaking. And so, like I said, it didn't work out with the girl, but it did get me out of having to take public speaking later on in life.
Well, perhaps you should send her a message just to thank her directly and indirectly for that.
I like it.
So many of our listeners are into personal development for different areas of their lives, and I was curious if you have a favorite book, or perhaps you read something recently that had a positive impact on you.
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence Influence Others. These are classic books, and these changed my life. The only like other book that I want to just give a props to is Rich Dad Poor Dad. And, it is a book about like business and real estate and that sort of thing, but really it's about the journey. And I think business, I think, entrepreneurship, I think public speaking, all of this stuff that we do, even doing podcasts and things, it is like the ultimate journey of personal development, because you have to learn, and it puts you in the spotlight where people are looking at you. And that's a tough thing.
No, definitely it is a tough thing. And speaking of books, do you have anything you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. I just wrote a book, and I'm super excited about it because I'm looking for that guy or that gal that is definitely afraid of public speaking out there, at least to share their message, whether you do it on Facebook Live or podcasts or, in a room or something like that. I've got a book out called The No BS Guide to Powerful Presentation that really shows you the benefits of it. It shows you how to put a talk together and really how to get people into action, because without action, nothing happens in life.
It's so funny you mentioned that the last 4 episodes that has directly and ironically been a focal point is action. And Jeff Woods, who's the host of the One Thing podcast, talked about you can have the greatest content, but without action, it's the equivalent of having zero content, because at the end of the day, it's the exact same thing. So if you wouldn't mind touching on that for a second, the action pieces, how has that impacted your life in regards to taking action versus not taking action?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm still plagued by it to this day. I think it's really easy for folks that are in the spotlight or, at a level, and they're like, oh, well, those guys don't have any flaws, or those girls, it just comes easy to them. And so I still struggle with it because, I want to perfect stuff. Like, I want to put out good work. I want to put out a great message that inspires you. And so like, that's a little daunting to me, because like every time I put something out, it's like, man, I don't want to put crap out. I want to put something good out that motivates and inspires. And so what I have realized, though, is if you don't get the message out and you wait and you wait and you wait, you lose people. Like, you lose the opportunity, I should say. And you actually, that's the strength, is getting your message out there, even though it's imperfect, and getting people's feedback and having the market tell you, yes, this is good. No, this isn't. And so you've got to act. You've got to get it out there, even if it's not perfect. Now, I'm not advocating be crappy in life for sure, but get something out there and have people give you feedback, whether it's a personal relationship, whether it's business, whether it's like whatever you're doing, your career, take that action and just be willing to accept the feedback and then just go on further. No one's going to remember what you did 10 years ago, right? But that's going to serve you 10 years from now. So go out and do it.
That's a great point. And I think most people are afraid to ask for feedback. And I think it's probably some of the criticism. But if you're willing to take a response, that's a second part of action, is not only do you put it out there, but I think asking for help is a huge piece of the puzzle. So just a follow-up question to that is that something you've always been open for, is asking for help, or did someone possibly mentor you into that?
Well, I haven't gotten here without mentors, that's for sure. When it comes to like a specific person in mind, no one like pops up like right away. And I usually just go right when the thought enters. Like usually it's my first is the right answer without overthinking it. But yeah, I always say you have to have a student's mindset. So no matter where you become successful in your life, coming back with like, hey, what can I learn from the situation? Even if it's like an unsavory situation, there's something to learn not to do, right? And not to put yourself in that situation again. And so I think about, you've got to have an open mind. You got to take the action, but you also have to be willing to learn from that and be a student. And so I just presuppose that because I guess that's me, but that is something that really strong to hit on, Chris, is that you've got to take action and you've got to be open for that feedback. And don't take it personal. Don't take it emotional. I know sometimes it's hard to do that, even for myself, but that's where you grow and that's where you learn.
So it's so interesting that you mentioned that is where you grow and that is where you learn. And I think a lot of people are afraid of criticism and feedback, but there's a way to do it in a positive way. And I always feel that if you really focus on the constructive criticism, as opposed to, hey, Dustin, that was terrible, as opposed to, hey, Dustin, maybe doing a tweak of that. So I commend you for being open to that. And I really like that student mindset, because I think there's a famous quote by Jim Rohn in regards to you become, I forget, I'm going to put in the show notes, but education versus real life education happens after schooling. And I think, to your point, you always need to be open to being a student and learning. And I think whether you're in your teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, or beyond, you can always learn, but you need to be in the mindset to be able and be willing to learn.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. I mean, you're missing out on life if you don't. Like when you stop learning, you die. And you may not like read books or something, but you're learning from people. You're learning from the situation. You're learning from heartbreak, right? And relationships. You're learning from, business failure, or business win. And so, yeah, if you kind of shun it out, like you don't grow as a person. And I know you're listening into this show, to the podcast, because you want to grow, you want to learn, and you want to get the most out of life. So bring that student mindset.
Speaking of quotes, we utilize a daily quote in each of our podcasts. I was curious if you have a favorite quote.
Oh, you put me on the spot, and I love it. A favorite quote. I mean, I have a ton of favorite quotes. In fact, we here at Speaking Empire, we have a wall, and we got a quote from every team member here, and so we have it on the wall. I can't recite it, nor can I see it from where I'm at to recite it to you. But I love Roan. I love Robbins. I love all the personal development stuff out there. So no one is coming to mind as you put me on the spot, which I love. But just take action. That would be my own quote, I guess.
I like that. So here, I'll follow it up. I just Googled it. The quote I was looking for Jim Rohn is, "Formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune."
I love it.
As we all know, Dustin, life is incredibly challenging, and every day we uncover and we experience many different obstacles. I was curious, what motivates and inspires you every day to keep on going?
What motivates me? The game, I guess. I mean, there's a lot of motivations. There's not just one thing. And I find that funny in life. Like, there's never just one thing I found for successful people. There's a lot of different things, right? Like, it's never just you as a person. There's a team, right? You never just read one book. You learned a lot of different things along the way. So for me, it's family for sure that motivates me. I got 2 young boys now, 3 and 6 weeks, 3 years old and 6 weeks. So that motivates me. Thank you. I'm learning about sleep again. So what motivates me? I'm very fortunate I get to do what I do every day. And the biggest thing for me is just sharing some knowledge with others and my experiences and my processes, and seeing them light up, seeing them go out into the world and take it out there, and having successes and wins and coming back so giddy and excited to share with me. That's really what's cool. And so it may sound corny, but it's like that adage: if you can just change one person's life, then you've won. And I know I've already done that. Like, I could stop now, but I get a high off of it and sharing, which is why I'm on podcasts, which is why I write books, which is why I do it. I love getting feedback of people winning, because I know, like, if I put out, people put out, like, it all raises, and we get to where we are today.
No, it's so true. And that's really the number one objective for not only our podcast, but also our company, is to motivate and inspire people to never give up on themselves or their dreams. And if this episode reaches one person and then that person pays it forward to someone else, now all of a sudden you're paying it forward 2, 3, 5, 10 people at a time. And that's just so exciting in so many ways. So I'm really glad that you briefly touched on that.
Absolutely. I think that's why we're here together. Like, we've attracted it. I can't explain some of that stuff, but we've attracted each other in each other's lives with similar mission and message. And so I think that's good for folks listening in, that, if you have a clear intention and you know what you're up to in the world, and even if you don't, but you keep still working towards it, you're going to start to attract things, and people are going to come into your life that will blow your mind. It's crazy. And I'm not by any means a law of attraction expert or a scientist, that deals with this sort of stuff, but I see it every day.
And it goes back to the point is, it's out there every day for other people, but you need to be open and willing. So definitely, I could not agree more with what you just said. If you could go back in time and give the 20-year-old version of yourself only one piece of advice, what would it be?
Man, you are bringing it on this interview, and I love it. One piece of advice for my younger self. You know what's on my mind right now, Chris, is ego. And so, I've gotten to where I am because I've leveraged ego, right? Like, I want to write this book, and I want to make it a bestseller, and I want to appear on this stage, and I want to do this. And so, like, it's bit me in the butt a lot. And so I've invested in things that I'm like, oh man, that was totally feeding the ego, and it really didn't serve me, and it really didn't like help me get my message out. And so I think the big thing I would tell my younger self is, be careful of ego, come with a service mindset. And when you do that and you're clear and you work at it versus trying to buy your way there quicker, put the work in, put the time in. And I've had no problem with working, but like, be careful of the shiny, be careful of the ego stuff that makes you feel good, but really, doesn't make a dent, and people don't really care about it. They really care about you. They care about your message and your actions. And so I would pound that into his head, and hopefully he would get it, but he was pretty hard-headed back then. But that's what I would tell him.
That's a great piece of advice, is put the ego to the side. I think we all probably at different times in our life not deal with ego per se, but it's a natural thing to put it away. And it comes back again to your point earlier, which is being open for criticism and constructive criticism, but more so being a student always. I think that's part of all of it. And I wish there were days I could go back and give the 20-year-old version of myself a piece of advice, but I think that whole ego concept would be a good one.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh, man, you are bringing it. I love it. Steve Jobs, he popped in my head first. And, obviously I could have gone with, God. I could have gone with Gandhi. I could have gone with some crazy things. I think I may be influenced because I'm listening to his biography on Audible. And so he's in my head. And, he's got a completely different style from me. And so that's been hard too in my life. Like I want to be around the happy-go-lucky people like myself and the people that are out there up to good in the world. Not to say that Steve Jobs wasn't, but his style is completely different from mine. You read about him, you hear about him, and you hear about his management style and how he motivated people kind of like through fear and just demanded the best out of people. And so I think there's something I can learn from him and benefit with. And I really admire what he did to build a movement around an idea, around a product. And so at this point in time, I would say Steve Jobs would be really cool to sit down and just pick his brain.
So we've done over 40 podcast recordings. You're the first person that said Steve Jobs, which is interesting.
Wow.
in different ways. You also mentioned it could have been God and it could have been Gandhi, but just so you know, you also could have responded that you would have liked to have dinner with me.
That's true. Oh man, that's like the biggest trap question there. I love it.
So and no one has said that yet. So don't feel bad in that regard. So wanted to ask you, in addition to your book, is there anything else exciting that you're working on you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. We do some pretty cool stuff here at Speaking Empire with helping folks with their message, and we write presentations that get people into action. So if you have an idea or you have a movement that you want to get out to the world in a big way, we'd love to help you. And you can check all the cool information out about what we're up to at speakingempire.com.
SpeakingEmpire.com. Last question, and I promise it's an easy one. In addition to your website, is there another way you like listeners to follow you or connect with you?
Yeah, Facebook. I always welcome it. I love to engage. And so on Facebook, if you type in Dustin Mathews, 1T, the unique way of spelling it, you should find me on there and just message me. Not to say that I'm going to get back in 2 seconds or that day, but I love to engage. And eventually, I go back there and engage and, comment and all sorts of things. So I'm happy to start a dialogue and discuss stuff and debate stuff and go back and forth and build value however I can.
No, that's great. And hopefully some of our listeners will connect with you. Do you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners today?
Parting words. Yes, I got one. So action, right? It's a big theme for the last 4, now 5 episodes, right? And so I would say whatever your goal is in life, and I know that so many different people listen to your podcast, Chris. And so whether you want to lose weight, maybe that's your goal. Maybe it's, leave corporate and go start your business. Maybe it's to find the love of your life, right? Whatever your goal is, I'm not partial. So you pick your goal. And what I would tell you to do is every day, I want you to do one small action. And a small action could be like, go listen to one of Chris's podcasts, Google it, go to a seminar, buy a book and read up on it. Just do one small action a day. Because when you do that over the course of a year, you'll have taken 365 actions and you'll be amazed at where you end up. And what I've found is if you just do one thing every day, you build momentum. And so you can get there a whole lot quicker than you think. Maybe not a whole year, maybe it's half a year, maybe it's 3 months, because you build this thing called momentum. So get out there, take one small action a day, and heck, if you want to overachieve, I'm okay with that. Take a big action too if you want.
Wow, that was some very simplistic advice, but when you take it into consideration, what you said about one small act a day doesn't sound very big, but then your follow-up to that was over the course of a year, you will have taken 365 steps and you would have built a large amount of momentum. So that was some very, very good advice. So I truly, truly appreciate not only your time, Dustin, but also the insight you shared with us. And I really, really look forward to hopefully speaking with you again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I hope I brought it like you said I would, and I really enjoyed being here today.
To sum up today's episode in our theme of the day, always be learning, Dustin shared some great advice. He's clearly very passionate about his work, as well as helping others. One thing we touched on quite a bit during today's episode was the importance of not only taking action, but also asking for feedback. One thing Dustin mentioned quite a few times was the importance of having a student's mindset and the willingness to learn, but also the willingness to accept constructive feedback. In his closing remarks, Dustin said something that was both incredibly simple yet extremely profound. He suggested that we pick one goal, and every single day he recommended that you take at least one step of action towards accomplishing that goal. He then mentioned that over the course of a year, you would have taken 365 steps toward accomplishing that goal, and your momentum would be unstoppable. So for today's call to action, I'm challenging our listeners to identify their one goal. After you have identified your one goal, today, take one step and do one thing that will help you accomplish that goal. So take action, do something, and go for your greatness. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.